Hello and welcome everyone. Today's show and tell is a session where we'll be sharing more details about one of the LOTI projects, specifically discussing the piloting a home care cooperative approach in Clapton. Next slide, please. In terms of the format for the session, so you'll hear more about the project first, but then there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions at the end. If there are questions that arise during the presentation, please do put them on the chat and the team will do their best to answer them straight away. If not, we will take all questions at the end. Like I said before, please do introduce yourselves in the chat so we know who we have here today. Next slide, please. So before we begin, just a quick reminder that this project is one of two projects that LOTI funded earlier this year as part of the New Service Models Innovation Fund, where we offered up to 100k to boroughs to test new service delivery models to improve outcomes in care. In this particular project, Hackney and Southwark are working in partnership with Equal Care Co-op to pilot this home care cooperative approach in this very specific area in Hackney. Next slide, please. We've got another one, I believe, Adam. Yeah, this one. So this project is about promoting better independent living by using a strength-based approach that enables local community organisations, care worker, residents themselves, and family carers in Clapton with the skills and knowledge required to improve outcomes for those people who need care. And what we are hoping the output and outcome for this project is to give borough commissioners more options in terms of services that combine that really truly holistic care that combines the formal and informal care. And we are hoping that for individuals this means they have more choice about the care packages, and for frontline workers, for social workers, we hope that they will be better off in using their skills and training to care for others. But without further ado, I will hand over now to the Equal Care Co-op project team, who will share more details about the project. Over to you. We can't hear you, Adam. You're on mute.
Always a good start. Hello, everybody. We're the Equal Care team. We're just going to do some quick intros to start with. Kate.
Hiya, so I'm Kate. I'm a co-founder of Equal Care Co-op, and for CQC purposes, I'm the registered manager, coach, very operational focused, and I'm working with an operational focus on the LOTI project alongside Luke.
Hi, my name's Luke. I'm the co-founder of Equal Care London and the project lead for the LOTI project. I live in Hackney and I'm sort of the project based in Clapton. Up the road is just near where I live. So,
my name's Adam. My role at Equal Care is leading on growth. And for the purposes of the LOTI project, my focus is on project management. So the important thing to say is that it's not just us who's working on this one. It is a kind of very much a collaboration. As you can see here, we've got a multitude of different organisations working together in order to deliver the Clapton Care Commons pilot project in London. So of course we have LOTI, who we're very grateful for providing the funding for this as well, but also Hackney and Southwark. And this is incredibly important that we work with the councils themselves to develop these new models of care in order that we can develop something that's actually sustainable, that it actually kind of works and operates on the ground. And the key thing for us as well is that we have that engagement across the boroughs. For us as well, just for a bit of background, Equal Care, we're based in London, but also Calderdale in Yorkshire, where we were founded. And we have various groups within ourselves, circles, because we're a socio-cooperative cooperative, working on this project. So as you can see here, we have the London group led by Luke. We have the platform team, so that's the people developing the technology behind what we do. And then we have the LOTI team themselves, which is, as you know, is Kate, Luke, and myself and others. But we're supported as well by a group of institutions. So we're working with the London School of Economics, the Resolution Foundation as well, and the University of London to support us, particularly on the measurement side of things and how we're kind of tracking what we're doing and measuring the outcomes. So, what is equal care? This is over to Kate.
Yeah, so a little bit about equal care and how it started. So I guess for want of a better term, our packaging is that we're a multi-stakeholder platform co-op. And we purely set up and exist to challenge, really, I guess our base is to challenge where power sits in social care. And ultimately, everything that we do is set up to try and redress that balance and making sure the most important people that are often left to the end are the people giving the support and the people getting the support, that relationship that is put front and center. And we do that in a multitude of ways. So from our internal governance, which Adam's already mentioned, so we are internal governance, we use sociocracy, which is all about equivalence of voice. From the transparency of the data that we hold on people, the notes, for instance, that you would make at the end of a shift. The people getting support are in that. They can read those notes. They can reply to those notes. Family members, if they consent to it, are in there. It's a real kind of holistic approach, and we work from a point of consent. So the people giving the support and the people getting the support, they choose each other, they choose their relationships, and it's very much relationship based. We don't have a kind of manager sitting in the office writing everybody's rotas. People choose their work-life balance, they choose when they can work, they choose who they support, and the people being supported choose who support them. So yeah, we try and look at that in a multitude of ways, from our governance all the way up to the support that's happening and how that's being kind of noted down and seen by others. So that's like a real kind of base of how equal care started, and we'll get into more details around how that's being applied in London.
So one of the kind of questions that is really important for us is why LOTI. So the first thing to say is that the backbone of our organisation is technology. So we've created our own digital platform, which allows our purpose to thrive, which is to create care and abundance. So this is a whole bunch of different kind of services we've kind of brought together in order to kind of create an environment for people with lots of different abilities and accessibility needs to be able to communicate with each other, organize themselves, and deliver care as well. But the important thing to say about that is that because we are kind of focused on the relationship, that's the core of our purpose. And the people who receive care and the people who provide care are both on the platform talking to each other. It's a mutual way of communicating and kind of working together. But this is kind of the driver behind why we kind of wanted to work with LOTI, because we're technically innovative. We like to think ourselves in the way that we work, and we're open source. We want to kind of get that out there and allow other people to use it as well. So that's kind of why we wanted to create a pilot like this in London. So we've been working in London for kind of over a year, kind of developing our London circle, so a group of different stakeholders, community members across London in different boroughs. But we wanted to actually kind of get care on the ground. But to do that, we needed money. So this is why this particular grant was really attractive to us, but also because we represent a new model in creating and delivering care. So it can fit really well for us. And also, as an organization like ourselves, we apply for grants. I'm sure many of you do as well. And some we win, some we lose. But not many of those are actually kind of focused on us being able to provide a service on the ground to people, the actual care itself. And there's not many grants around for statutory services like that. So we kind of felt that LOTI was very well aligned to that, to allow us to develop this pilot and get it going. And the crucial thing for us is to go through that pilot to prove that it can work. We've already proved that it works once up here in Calderdale, and we've expanded and grown here, but we want to be able to do that in London, and it's a very different environment down in London in terms of the kind of the where the councils operate, the way that commissioning operates, the way that different organisations work on the ground, and the way the communities are constructed themselves. And that's a crucial part for us. Like when we as a cooperative, we want to create other kind of nodes of our cooperative of equal care, but we can't do that in a cookie cutter templated way. We need to do that in a way which is flexible, which responds to the different dynamics in those local regions as well, from the people on the ground, the politics up in the councils themselves, right the way through to, you know, all the different kind of services that are there to bring together to provide care. So what we want to be able to do here in London is to be able to adapt our model and create a playbook in order that we can then provide that to other councils in order that they can then take and use that as inspiration going forward to create their own cooperative models of care. So we're going to go on to our journey so far. And we've been kind of operating now, we kind of started around April time on the project. So we're kind of a little bit earlier in the year, but kind of in terms of the commissioning, we're kind of about about a quarter of the way through on the actual kind of budget at this stage. But the first thing we did was set up. So, you know, we brand new in London in terms of operating and delivering care. So a lot of the work was around actually getting ourselves set up as a project. I'll talk very quickly about this one because it's not the most exciting stuff in the world. But we are an agile organization. So we work using agile methodologies. We work, as Kate and I mentioned before, in sociocratic methods as well, which means that we bring people together to make decisions by consent, and also that we do those things with a kind of the acceptance that things will change on the plan. That I don't know how many people are aware of working on agile, but it's absolutely crucial that we use these techniques not to kind of work to a plan which is so heavily structured that we can't deviate from it without any kind of loss of inertia or kind of, you know, crisis of confidence. We need to react to change really well, and agile provides that for us. So we use kind of various ceremonies within that to bring people together to make sure that we've got real kind of clarity of thought between everybody involved, and everybody's got a chance to input in the decision making as well, rather than it being, you know, as we've kind of talked about before, the tendency can be in care for a kind of a top-down approach, and managers are making decisions on behalf of others. We do that in a much more collective manner, but we're kind of well experienced with that methodology. And it seems to operate really well and successfully for us, and we get outcomes. We reach outcomes much more rapidly and positively. But this also includes the communities that we work with as well. It's not just us and the people we work with, it's everybody's involved in that. So moving on to Luke around community engagement.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Adam. So yeah, we didn't just want to come to an area and just sort of provide care for the communities there. We actually wanted to actually provide care with the community groups in that area. So if you turn to the next slide, Adam, that meant really, first of all, getting to know the local landscape of care and support. So this is Upper Clapton, this is Clapton Common. So how did we get to know this landscape? Is just by turning up to community events, and at the time there was a series of monthly community gatherings on the Common, which was pitched for over 50s, so it drew some of the key stakeholders we wanted to engage that have an interest in social care. So first of all, that's just turning up, getting to know people, identifying the sort of key anchor community organizations that could be potential partners. So that's how we formed a relationship with St Thomas Church, with Clapton Commons, a place-based community development organisation that was involved in the development of that space just at the back, which was a former disused toilet and became a community kitchen, thanks to the work of this particular community development organisation. So out of this engagement, we started to form a group made up of people with an interest in care and support, and also members of local organisations. We founded the Clapton Care Circle. The other thing, once we got a sense of the local landscape of support, we wanted to start to actually address some of the needs there, even before doing care. So this is an act. There was a sheltered housing place on the common with very little going on in the public living space there. So we started putting on our own event, which was actually co-producing a little activity with the community based on our philosophy of care, which is that really individual well-being is based on your relationships to people, places and things. So we borrowed things from different places in the local community and brought them into the home, sort of bringing the outdoors into people who are often struggling to get out and about. And we developed a multi-sensory activity just to engage people and stimulate reminiscence and conversations and connections with the wider community. So we want to demonstrate we had something of value to bring and give people a taste, if you like, of our philosophy of care. And then this was a relationship building process as well, and more members were interested in joining our circle. So once we'd had, if you like, built some trusted relationships, we wanted to put on our own more events collaboratively with our key partners. So if you move to the next slide, Adam. One of the things we noted about a lot of care and support, that it's invisible. It happens in people's homes. Yeah. And so we had this idea of just bringing the indoors, outdoors, and we're setting up these care lounges where people had a space to talk about their experiences of care and support. And we hosted these care lounges at similar events to the gathering that you just saw the image of before. And actually this event was part of a wider event where there was tables and chairs on the common, but this time this was made up of our key partners. So that included East London Cares, which is a befriending organisation, Compassionate Neighbours, which is linked to St Joseph's Hospitals and coordinates volunteers, Made in Hackney, which is a community kitchen that provides free meals, the Warm Welcome Team, which is a mutual aid group that does a space in a church to address people's heating and eating needs, and Clapton Commons, and of course Equal Care. So we all did this under something we called the banner of care in common. So we started to build a network that could deliver its own events collaboratively. So if you move to the next slide, Adam. So once we had formed a group, we started to think more about how we realize our teams model of care. So up in Calderdale, they adopt a teams model of care, which a team in Equal Care is built with the person receiving care, and it's made up of members of that person's existing support network, but also then we recruit in our Equal Care workers into that team. So we started with a care mapping process, mapping people's personal support networks. And in this picture, you can see I actually adapted the mapping process to make it more accessible. So it was a more multi-sensory experience using objects. Often we do care mapping people's personal care networks with a pen and paper. But this was a way in which this lady was able to engage more fully in the mapping process. And if you move to the next slide, you can see what maybe a formal care map might look like. But what it does is it shows some of the key actors in someone's informal, if you like, care team. And it also shows some of the places that are meaningful to them. Yeah. And so this gives us a sense of how we might be able to help people stay connected to their community, but how we might build a team where family members, friends, local community members aren't on the periphery of our service, but are central to it. So we then start recruiting in, if you like, in that diagram, into that network by recruiting locally. And there'll be some slides in a minute. If you go to the next slide, Adam. So another parallel mapping process is, so once we were part of this local landscape of care and support, we started to map it, to see the relationships, because what we wanted to do is not just build teams that could provide care to an individual in their household, but we wanted to try and generate cooperative connections between teams and local grassroots care and support, and the local grassroots care and support network that could enrich the quality of lives of the people in those teams. So this is a mapping process we've begun, and we started to, as you can see, there's some of the organizations that I mentioned there in this map, and it's an interactive map It's live. So what we do is we update this map, and it tells the story really of the role that our local organizations are playing in this network. But it also tells starts to tell the story of the role that our teams that we're building play in this network. And one of the key things about this map is it's also making visible what is the local gift economy, if you like, in that network. And it's trying to see if we can find ways of enriching people's care and support in teams through accessing that local gift economy and stimulating it. So that might be a local business, for example, agreeing to provide some free meals or discounted meals to members of our teams. It can be the volunteer coordinator service agreeing to pledging to provide befrienders to those teams, so that we start to actually we believe that care and support can exist in greater abundance if we can actually engage, if you like, the resource, the untapped, if you like, resources and assets that are there in the local community. So if you shift to that.
I was going to say, as Luke says, this is one of the key kind of elements of what we're actually doing here as well. One of the things that we realised in doing the project so far is that initially we thought this would be an initial kind of way in to understand more about what's happening, revealing what's happening within communities, all these organizations, individuals working together. But what we kind of rapidly kind of understood was that this is an evolving picture. It's not something that which remains static either. So this is one of the major deliverables that we will be outputting for the project. As Luke says, an interactive map. This has various layers. So the interactive layer will actually kind of go much deeper in this and have a lot of annotation and notes surrounding it, but we'll make this open for people to actually use. And then when it goes into our playbook, it'll be kind of put in there as a way of people engaging with their communities and building up that kind of picture of what's actually happening, those assets that exist in the community that would typically remain invisible. That could be essential for someone. You know, you could have someone living a street away that could provide a service to someone, and those things are not usually seen because they're the way that they're connected isn't kind of usually accessible. That's what we're doing in this, and that's the thing that we've realized we're going to continue doing through the project, not just the beginning. It's going to be part of the tooling that we're going to provide for kind of other people to carry this project on.
Thanks, Adam. Actually, I'd add to that and say that this map, then we can provide the design of this map is like a template that other groups can use. Once we've set the template, people can create their own maps in different localities as well, using the format that we've created over the course of this project. We're also creating a shared calendar for members of this network using another platform, which enables all of the members of this network to have their events and their activities all on one page. So there's a calendar of all the events that relate to this network. So the other thing we wanted to do to build our teams is obviously we need to find people who are looking for better care and support, or are new to care and just about to receive social care. We also need to recruit into our teams professional care and support workers. So the key thing is this is a hyper-local model. So what we're doing is we're recruiting from within the network that we're a part as much as possible. So if we go to the next page, you'll see what does that look like in practice. The first person who was interested in building a team with us was a member of a church called St. Thomas Church. For about 40 years, this was one of the most meaningful relationships that she has in our life, is the connection to this place and her role that she played in that church. So actually, the priest there is a member of the Clapton Care Circle, and his son and I went to talk about the project to the congregation. And that was in a bid to just make Hazel's team a bit more visible and accessible. People are aware of what's happening and Hazel's life, but it was also about recruiting, finding people within the community that might support, might be interested in care and support work. So we already are in conversation with one member of the congregation who's a care worker who was very curious and interested about our project, and who may well be one of our care workers in this project. If you go to the next slide. Old Hill School is another local anchor community organisation, and it was already had a close partnership with our key partner, Clapton Commons. So this is a recruitment event in a parents' evening just a couple of weeks ago, on that beautiful sunny week we had in September. And so we set up our care lounge for opportunity people to talk about their experiences of giving and receiving care, and also to let people know that we're hiring in their area. And we had a huge response actually from a lot of the parents group interested in part-time care and support work from Old Hill School. And of course, this is ideal if we can build teams. This is recruiting locally to support in the same neighbourhoods. So that's now, I think this gives you a sense of the process and where we are at the moment. Right now is the recruitment drive, really. It's finding people and training people to work in our teams, and we're open to training up people new to care, as well as working with people who've worked in care for a long time. They both require just as much training, because whilst one needs a bit of training in being comfortable in moving into that role of a care worker, another one needs training to kind of challenge some of the institutionalized behaviors that are just the norms in many home care providers. So they both actually require a lot of support.
Kate.
So on that, we have actually recruited our first care and support worker, which is great. And she's new to care and support. As Luke mentioned, she's been a volunteer in one of these programs. She's wonderful. She's already started, she's done a bunch of her mandatory training, and she's made a solid start on her care certificate training. So again, it's a lot of what Equal Care is set out to do, and particularly wherever that is, in Calderdale or in Clapton, is sort of looking to stop that revolving door that we see all of the time in the sector, which is people moving from agency to agency to agency without really growing or developing. So there's a really big kind of focus in Equal Care about the kind of career prospects, supporting people to grow and develop in their skills. We've brought in something called HATS, which is basically one of our kind of coaches up in Calderdale, for instance, retired, and rather than filling her role, we were like, right, let's kind of divide this person up into a bunch of tasks and look at how we can upskill care and support workers to take on those things. So people getting genuinely really holistic, they're learning new skills, they're still doing the care and support, they're not pulled out to be a manager, an extra, a supervisor, an extra £1 an hour. They can still do that care and support, which is what they're passionate about, but then they can also kind of be trained up. So initially we trained up 2 of our care and support workers to do the whole recruitment process, so they're the recruiter hats, and 2 of our care and support workers to start new teams. We called them team starters. So again, from that first call of somebody looking to start getting care and support from Equal Care and have their own team, we call them teams. So each person getting support has their own team. And that's a huge part of the model. So that the people we trained up from the first call of someone interested to getting support, all the way to kind of forming that team, having the people in there, the regular, consistent people, those matches and relationships that have been built, and stepping out once that's there. And then we've still got kind of the coach, so me as registered manager, who comes in to solve problems, but we're not there micromanaging in any way. So that's a really big part of that progression is, once someone's been with us for a bit, do you want to train up to do recruitment? We've also now trained one of our care and support workers does all of our financial bookkeeping. We've got care and support workers that look after our big chunks of our health and safety. We've got a care and support worker that does kind of rota wrangling for the area. So again, it's all in part of that kind of that revolving door that we see all of the time. One of our big boasts, which I'll always talk about, it's now become a running joke in Equal Care Co-op, but our turnover rate is under 4%, which is, it like sector average up north in Yorkshire is 38%. So we're currently, I think, 3.7%. And that's all part of it. When you invest in people, when you pay them considerably better than they're being paid anywhere else. So there are 2 routes into employment to recruitment. In London, we're starting with independent, so self-employed workers, where they set their own rate, so long as it sort of sits within the kind of local. We'll come on to funding shortly. But they set their own rate. Then there's a contribution to the Commons of Equal Care, and then also we now up in Calderdale employ people directly, and we employ them on a London living wage. And the key difference as well is that we employ them on a salary rather than just the hours that you're in someone's house. So that's the key difference. In London, we're starting like we did in Calderdale with independent workers while we build that base of people, and then we're hoping down the line to be able to offer employed contracts down as part of in Clapton as well. And I think just a really kind of quick, I don't know how we are with time, but one of the people that Luke mentioned that's looking at getting support with Equal Care Co-op, she's become completely disillusioned with care and support. Like, she's really unhappy with the care and support she's getting. And when there's been talk from, Luke, who goes and supports her voluntarily, and her son, try this, she's been a bit like, no, like she's just done with it. And when she got told that the first care and support worker that's come on is actually the granddaughter of somebody that she went to the church with, her entire demeanor towards it changed. She was just like, wow. Yeah, it's seeing that, it's seeing those relationships. I was in a meeting the other day with Luke, and he talked about it in these people that have given so much into their community are now able to, like, not take from it, but for there to be this reciprocal nature from the community itself is just, it's really beautiful. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
So the other thing we see here as well, which is really gratifying, we hope to kind of bring this to London as well, is the fact that we're seeing a lot of people who are coming from outside of the care sector coming to work with us. And this is something which we're really proud of seeing, because again, we're talking about revolving door, but we're also talking about changing the direction. People coming into care. We're always talking, the narrative at the moment, of course, is everyone leaving care and stopping working in that. But we're seeing success with our model in Calderdale, and we hope to repeat that as well. And just to talk about where we are with the project, so our goal is 5 teams, we're on track with that at the moment. So we have a very developed kind of pipeline of individuals we're kind of working with and talking to kind of bring them in and to kind of create the care teams. Just had a stat from Kate, which is 30% of our care and support workers need care, which I think is pretty unusual in the sector. So the next thing we're going to talk about is measurement. So crucial to what we're kind of delivering for this project is the measurement framework, but also the actual kind of outcomes, the measurement itself of that. Now, where we're kind of coming from on LOTI is that we're using this as a kind of a way to be able to standardize the way that our entire kind of operation measures what we do. So we're conscious that we want to create a playbook that is and a service specification that can be used across multiple kind of locations, different boroughs. So we're kind of starting with London and kind of Hackney, but also with the Calderdale kind of council that we work with as well. And the way that we're kind of doing this is establishing, first of all, a kind of a working group. And this is the one that includes London School of Economics, the Resolution Foundation as well, who kind of, as people may be aware, kind of closely involved with the living wage, and also the University of East London. And we're bringing all these kind of brains together in order to kind of create a really robust kind of measurement framework that looks at kind of our theory of change and how we want to kind of like affect kind of care and how it's done, its perception of care. So what we're going to do here is looking at the kind of different indicators, looking at the different kind of measures, what tools we're using to measure those things, and then creating a framework that then can be kind of used, and kind of lifted and shifted from different organisation to organisation. And we're also using this as a way to kind of challenge our assumptions of what we're doing. So from where we are no doubt a kind of a campaigning organisation, we have a particular kind of view on care and what we want to get out of it, and what we want to how we want to kind of change the way it's kind of perceived and the way that it works and show that it works. But we want to kind of challenge that as well, and we see that when we start working with new boroughs. So that's what we're going to talk about next, the challenges. So the first challenge that we've kind of come across, and probably the most kind of knotty so far, is direct payments. Over to Kate.
Yeah, I'm aware that we're running quite tight on time, so if we'll move through these as quick as we can, and then we can get to a question and answer. So if you've got any questions about challenges, we can go into more depth then. But yes, there was a big problem here in that I think a shock to everybody, including the people we were talking to, the really engaged and wonderful people down in Hackney that we were talking to, when we told them what the hourly rate of pay was in Calderdale compared to London, there was a lot of faces. So the direct payment rate in London, and that's quite and it's one of their higher rates, is £19 for agencies, down, just to give you the comparison, in Calderdale for urban areas it's £21.78, and in rural areas it's £22.88. That is quite a big difference, and obviously that's not taking into account the real London living wage. So that was one of our big kind of, as Luke put it, knotty, and it's been really nice. We've built a really kind of, I love relationships with local authorities where you can both just be really honest and push back, but keep it really like, yeah, we know our hands are tied. So Hackney have done everything that they can to move. So we've been talking to Georgina and Mark, the head of direct payments, and they've done everything they can to kind of say, right, with these teams, we can guarantee this kind of hourly rate of the 19 for the direct payments. But yes, there's absolutely still some work to do, and it's raising those questions as we grow around the how we don't end up consistently playing into that postcode lottery of, well, we'll only go where the bigger direct payments are. Then we're just playing in to be part of the problem. So there is, out of this is coming a wider piece of thinking that we're going to have to do, and how we make that work. And then also part of our campaigning arm is how we kind of push back into central government. There are problems here, they need solving. There's just not the money in the pot. There was a whole fair cost of care exercise that all local authorities, as sure everybody here knows, were asked to do, but then there was very little money following it to actually get people to commit to that. So that's been a real challenge up to now. I'll stop there. I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, so another challenge is finding people. That's obviously, there's a challenge in recruitment. There's a lot of stigma attached to care and support work. So we're having to do our best to kind of reframe it, change perceptions of what care and support work can be. And that's crucial to our success, I think, of our recruitment, especially if we were really focused on trying to recruit locally, to support locally, rather than just accept anyone from anywhere who's got an interest in a slightly better care and paid work. So the other challenge is the idea that there's a market that people are shopping around for, shopping around for better care. Actually, like Kate's story highlighted about a potential person someone we're building a team with. People don't feel very empowered about shopping about. They're very resistant to change. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. People are afraid of making a change because they're worried that if they make any noises, potentially what they have could get worse. The package that they've got in place could be reduced if they attract attention to themselves. That's a fear. The care provider they have now isn't good, but it could be worse, and they have had worse in the past. There's very little faith that it could be better. So this, building that trust and raising the expectations of what care can be is a challenge. What's next?
Sorry, I'm moving to the next one. Sorry, I just there.
Yeah. So let's move on to sustainability.
What Luke's saying there can feed into this sustainability question as well. So, one of the things that kind of we're very keen on is that, we're developing a platform, we're developing a framework, and we're developing a methodology here to work specifically kind of in London and adapting the one that we've already got up here in Calderdale. But we don't want to kind of stop once the funding stops. We've got, it's a fixed price project. We've got the value for the year, but that's not applicable when we're trying to actually help people on the ground and care for them. So a key part of what we're doing is trying to kind of build the sustainability of this. But this is kind of really tricky because, there's a certain amount of kind of income that we would need from care in order that we can then sustain the roles that we need to support the care in London. And the way that we operate is that we maximize the amount of money that the people who receive care get, and we take a slice of that, but it's relatively small. So we need to kind of build up quite a good network of kind of care teams in order to then become independently sustainable ourselves. So kind of what we're looking at as well is kind of looking at the wider grant landscape as well in London to continue what we're doing. but also, where we've built our cooperative so far on community share offers. So that's the kind of the next step of what we'll start doing in London as well. And one of the things that's really fundamental to the way that works is the people who are receiving care become members of our cooperative as well. So they've got a say in what we do. I mean, they have a say anyway with the way that we operate, but it's absolutely amazing because we had our AGM just this week up here, and the people are really engaged. People who receive care are there engaged in what we do, and we want to get that in London as well. And we do that through membership, but we also do that through our share offer as well. And as Kate mentioned as well, one of the things that we're working with is trying to work with central government as well to change the way that organisations like ourselves are funded around cooperatives so that we can grow and provide, as I said, care in abundance. We're going to work on going to what's next on the project. So we've got a number of kind of deliverables that we're kind of working on in parallel, as you can imagine, what we're doing. So as I say, we're on track at the moment with our kind of milestones in terms of kind of the setup, building the platform with the care teams, the recruitment process that we're going through. That's our real focus right now, because we want to be providing care and kind of actually getting those teams operating. We're continuing on the measurement framework work to then kind of implement that measurement as well. And then the also thing we're doing as well is, because we're a technology business, kind of underneath all of this, is that we're bringing in our kind of tech team to start working with the people on the ground in London to develop specific functions and for them. So the crucial next step for us is something called circle functions, which enables these groups of people to operate independently. Again, what this is meaning is removing that need for management, middle management, kind of top-down kind of hierarchies, to empower people to look after themselves in terms of their care teams themselves. So providing things for people who are receiving care and giving care, so they can have they can work together better, and also have total transparency in their relationships as well, in terms of when people are actually going to make appointments, or how much money is being used, or when things need to be paid, or all these things which can get really kind of caught up for people. We're making very easy to use. The other two things are our playbook and our service spec. These are the things that we'll delivering at the end of the project, and we'll be making public for everybody to use as well. And again, that's part of our commitment as an organisation to work in the open, and we do that with our technology. We work in open source, but we also do that in our methodologies as well. And I think that kind of takes us kind of to the end. So that's a kind of a hearty thanks for listening to us. And what we do, we're looking forward to another one of these in a certain amount of time. So we'll be able to kind of like report about further kind of developments of where we've got to. But also, please do kind of talk to us as well. So, we're interested in kind of hearing from people, questions, kind of comments, all that good stuff. So please do send us an email if you're interested in talking. But on to the Q&A.
Please don't be shy. Do raise your hand.
Tumbleweeds kind of going across the screen there. Does anybody have any kind of questions for us at all, or comments, or feedback, or anything?
Lydia's typing.
It'll be quicker than just to ask. For transparency, I've worked with Equal Care Co-op in the past, but this is a question that I don't know the answer to. It's not a problem. I would just like to know more about working your experience of working with the local authority on something that is so new, and as you say, without the hierarchies and structures that are so common in the sector, because my experience is that is quite scary for local authorities, because they have so many structures that they need to hit, and what's the word, regulations that they need to abide by, and they've got a lot of safeguards in place to make sure that they hit those. So asking them to flex is difficult. And I just wanted to hear more, the good, the bad, and the ugly about that experience.
Can take this. that's, yeah. We've jumped through a lot of hoops, an awful lot of hoops. I was actually having a conversation with Luke about this the other day. So we had to fight at the beginning to get people on side, and I think what's important, what we haven't actually said, well, I guess I have very briefly in my introduction, is we are regulated by the CQC. We are, you know, we are a regulated, we had our first inspection and we were rated good across the board. It was a really good inspection. So, you know, we have our own very robust safeguarding processes. So even though we work in a much more kind of people-centered, autonomous way, we still absolutely have our very strong policies and procedures. And what we found is that social workers or people higher up in the local authority kind of meet us and go, "Whoa, what?" And then, so the first time we ever supported somebody on a NHS continuing health care package, the case manager of that was very wary of us, and then we jumped through hoops after hoops after hoops. Send me this, show me this, show me this, show me this, and now we have the most incredible relationship with the ICB, with the CHC team. So a lot of it is like right at the beginning, and I was saying, this is what I was saying to Luke, is this is going to be the same journey down in London, and we've already made some really good connections in Hackney, but it's about kind of, yes, we're different, yes, it frightens people, but once we jump through the hoops, once they see the outcomes, they hear what the families say, they see the support in a lot of instances. I was giving support in a team a long time ago, and a district nurse kept coming back when I was there, and eventually she went, "Who are you and where are you from?" You know, and then those people start to talk. So the word of mouth actually then starts, you know, and now we're at a point where social workers will directly call me. We've got this person, they're quite difficult. Can you work with them? We think what you do is perfect. Exactly the same with the CHC. So yes, it's been a challenge, but we've stayed strong. And a lot of the challenge as well is working really well with the local authority, but also not rolling over, particularly whether it's with social workers, because we're still there to advocate for the people and help them self-advocate for the people getting the support. So that's also a really fine balance that we consistently work, that yes, we're here, we will listen, we're on your side, but we're also not now gonna go, yeah, sorry, person getting support, but this is what's been said. So it's a tightrope that we're constantly kind of walking.
This is also the benefit of working agilely, cooperatively, sociocratically with organisations as well, in that the care teams that we're kind of helping to kind of create also include the people from the council services as well. So to be clear, is like they're part of that group, and we communicate with them as such as part of our team, and it's a very mutual relationship. And that's the kind of crucial thing. Luke was talking earlier about the idea of trust. The trust goes across all the different organizations that we interact with, and that's why we're talking about this kind of commons approach, which is organizations coming together, working cooperatively. So it's the other kind of element there, I'm sure Luke can talk about this, is the kind of idea of deprogramming people a little bit away. People have expectations that are very clear, they're very set, both in terms of the people who are providing care, the care workers themselves, people receiving care, but also the services that sit around them as well. They're thinking very straight lines. This is how it is. Our job is to disabuse them of that and going, it can work in different ways. So it's having those conversations and building up that trust, having those, you know, a longer term and deeper relationship beyond the transactional.
Someone's got their hand up, I know, but I can quickly answer Paula's question about the digitally immature. I'd quite like that. We work with a lot of people that do not want to sign up to the platform, do not have an email address, have no interest in engaging whatsoever, and then it's just absolutely a choice. So some people say, just my family member, I don't want to be involved. But I guess one story, which I think we started supporting someone about 3 or 4 months ago, who won't even accept phone calls. So our entire engagement with him is via post, and it's worked beautifully. And he's finally started he went from not wanting care at all. His family were really suggestive of it. No, it'd be really good, really good. And it's literally, we use our office as the correspondence address, and the care and support workers write a letter back, post it off. He writes back literally to, I can come on this date on the 17th at this time, letter back. That's great. See you then, you know. So we absolutely can work. I can give you multiple examples of how the accessibility is considered in both the build, the way we communicate with people, you know, whether it's printing off really large print profiles, which are our support plans, and delivering them to people, or audio recording things, going to people's houses and reading it to them. You know, we have and will do it all, really.
Yeah, accessibility goes beyond the digital, you know, goes beyond the kind of the AAA standards into different ways of working. And again, this is the benefit of working in these teams and these kind of circles, these units, which can then really kind of bespokely deliver those needs in that area, rather than it being a one-size-fits-all templated approach. We've got George with his hand up, I believe.
Lander George.
Oh, Lander
Hi.
George. Sorry.
Yes. No problem. Yeah, I loved the presentation and the like all the ideas that you shared about the project. Really excited for you. I used to be a social worker in Hackney, and I also used to have a mum who had dementia, who had direct payments from Hackney's team. I moved into social enterprise, and I'm now a service designer at Barnet. But this is one of the problems that I really felt really needed solving. One of the major problems is like long-term care and the lack of alternatives, and the fact that care workers, you know, there's a shortage of good quality care, and people move around. So it's amazing that your team are trying to solve all of those problems in your one project. Very, very ambitious. And I definitely know that with local authorities, they're always talking about budgets. So my question is for you guys is like, what's your long-term ambition, or what do you see this project turning out? What's your hopes and dreams for the project long term?
Luke, do you wanna? You're muted.
You're muted, Luke.
You're muted. You
I'll go.
hope
Okay, so, yeah, I'm muted. So thanks, Lander. I've got a question for you after we've perhaps responded to this, if there's time, because I'd love to hear about your experience of with your mum and direct payments, and whether you started on direct payments from a go or shifted, because I think we could learn a lot from your experience of that, because that's exactly the process we're managing for people at the moment. But in terms of your question, I think what we want is we want to really start costing the model, so we know how we can be what sustainability looks like in London. We want to have some targets for growth in London, and then we can see if we're viable, and we could do a community share offer, a place-based community share offer, to raise funds to build our service in Clapton and potentially move into other areas. And we'd like to be able to find partners in other local boroughs to try out the Commons model of care in their area, take the learning. There's lots and lots of learning from this project that we could then apply to another borough, and I'm sure we could do it differently and better with other community organisations in other boroughs, and working in partnership with the council. So we'd like to replicate the process in other boroughs. I also think that whether we have a pathway to a sustainable service in Clapton or not, we want to find ways of making sure those teams are self-managing, and they can sustain themselves and have just enough support to keep going, even if we haven't financially viable to launch a full service post LOTI. And the other thing is we want to leave behind a lasting community asset through the Commons model approach. You've seen the community network that we've played a really key role in actually building. So we'd like people to take ownership, if you like, of that what we've created, the Care Commons, that network, and local groups to be the stewards of that network. And we're creating an infrastructure which they can use, so that that can continue to enrich the local landscape of care and support, whether we play a central role in it or not. So those are some of the outcomes that we're long-term outcomes we're hoping for.
Dream big.
Thank you, Luke. Brilliant.
Steve is typing.
So we've got
And
4 minutes.
just to answer your question, my mum was originally getting care directly from a home care provider, and it moved over to direct payments. So yeah.
Yeah. And what was just briefly say a few words about that transition and whether if it improved the care, or
It did improve. Yeah, it did improve the care. My mum was someone with quite complex needs, so having home care provided by an agency didn't meet her needs, just because there's like changes in provision, different people turning up, and people, the home care workers not knowing her well, not knowing her needs. So direct payments meant that we could actually interview someone, find a good fit, have consistency, have flexibility, and that worked well for her. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Landa. I think some people, when we've tried to talk about the benefits of direct payments, people who've been used to traditional kind of services and agencies that are commissioned, they find it hard to imagine that it's even possible to have that level of power and control over your care that direct payments can, if there's the right support in place, really offer.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more kind of questions in the last closing seconds at all? Yeah, I mean, one of the things to say, I've got a few comments about kind of the playbook. The playbook is something we'll be delivering at the end, because we can't create a playbook until we've finished, as it were. We have to kind of like know what we've done to kind of to comment and document all of that. But yeah, we're going to make all these things will be open and available for different kind of boroughs and different kind of individuals or organisations to use. But as Luke said, there's two parts. We want to make it work in Hackney, and start to work in new neighbourhoods in Hackney. As well, can grow within that borough, but then we also want to work with other boroughs as well and start to expand the care out to those ones as well. So the kind of the golden kind of goal is, a care in abundance. We want to be able to kind of propagate that. The key thing about us is that because the model that we've got, it might not be us who does that, but providing the ability for others to do this a similar thing to us, but it doesn't necessarily have to be us who's doing it. That's working in the open.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. I think we've come to the end of today's session. Just to thank the Equal Care Co-op project team. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you to all the participants. I will share the slides and the recording with you afterwards, and on the website, the link for which you have in the chat. But yeah, for now, thank you very much for joining us. Take care. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye.